Eric Lanask with TMC coming to you from the Javits Center in New York here at Cloud Expo. Andrew, there's been a lot of activity around cloud, people starting to adopt cloud, hearing an awful lot of adoption stories. So clearly there's a much higher level of understanding. There's still some challenges there. Talk to me about those.
Well, we see some pretty big challenges in I guess, two areas. One is migrating workloads into the cloud. So you want a cloud, you have an internal cloud that you've built, or maybe external. How do I safely move things over? So we call it transformation analysis. That's a big area. And then what you see on the screens here is what we call control. Once you have the workloads in the cloud, how do you make sure you're running at the optimal efficiency, the right density, and make sure all the VMs are the right size? So it becomes an active, it's almost taking capacity management to the next level, to what we call capacity control, which says I need to actively control the environment to make sure I have things in the right place and I make them the right size.
Now there's both an efficiency and a cost factor involved there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. If you look at density, there's a direct link between density and cost. So if we can drive up the density of the VMs even 25, 30%, you see a huge reduction in IT spend on the infrastructure side. So and that's exactly what our customers tend to do first off, is you point this at a running environment, and you say, it's almost like playing Tetris across many dimensions. If I can place things properly, I can free up stranded capacity and I can avoid purchases. And again, it's like a one-line ROI. You can save millions of dollars just by compressing what you have.
Now, one of the challenge though, I think, is capacity demands and requirements are fluid. You don't necessarily have the same capacity requirements today as you will tomorrow, the next day, the next week.
Exactly, that's a very good point. So what we're finding is the old school methods of just trending don't work in cloud environments. It's more like a hotel, and that's why we have what we call a booking system. So you think about a hotel, if you're managing a hotel, you don't really care if your guests are growing at 1 inch a year. You just care when they're showing up and when they're leaving. And the same is true of a cloud. So we have what we call a booking system to say, I have these new apps coming in next week or next month, or these ones leaving, and that's much more fluid in cloud environments than it's ever been before. And so it all becomes a lot like managing a hotel. And again, we call that the booking system, which is part of forecasting in a cloud environment.
How easy is that for an IT guy to manage?
Well, it's pretty straightforward. Our product, for example, in a VMware environment, if you just point it at VMware, it gets all the data from the APIs. It's very simple, and you'll get a visualization and actions coming out of the product fairly quickly. Now the bookings are also very easy to do. We see some customers tying them into systems they already have. If they have a demand portal or a cloud self-service portal, you can get these feeds that come in and say, this is what's coming down the pipe, and this is my current situation, when am I going to run out of capacity, or how do I respond to this over the next weeks and months?
One of the things that I've always believed makes it easier for IT folks is having a nice visual, easy to understand graphical display, which is something that you've been able to accommodate. Can you show me how that works?
Yeah, absolutely, and we think this is very important because what happens with clouds is you take a lot of physical complexity of physical environments and you turn it into virtual complexity. A cloud often runs in a very clean cabinet that looks really nice and simple, but inside is rocket science. So what we have actually here is a visualization of an entire data center, and what we've done is be able to visualize the efficiency and risk at the cluster, host, and guest level. So you can see all the different levels and moving parts in the environment, and we're rendering it telling you if you have not enough capacity or too much capacity. And it's interesting when you put it this way because you can visually see cases where you have too much capacity in the environment, but not enough on a given server or on a given VM. And in fact, we can take it and project forward in time. So if I click here, I can open a time slider and say, this is my environment today. If I go forward 30 days in the future, we'll actually visually see the trends in the data, the movements of the dots, and we'll see new applications flying into the environment. So you get a very intuitive grasp of what's happening in your environment right now and in the near and long-term future. So it's a new level of forecasting that hasn't been possible in virtual and cloud environments without this kind of analytics.
How accurate is that forecast when you're looking 30, 60, 90 days out?
Well, again, in the short term, the bookings dominate the trends. So the trends have a very minor impact compared to the apps coming and going. As you get further out, then of course that becomes as accurate as the inputs. So if you're looking a year out, then most people may not know what apps are deploying a year from now. So we tend to stick to short to mid-term for the most accuracy. At 30, 60, 90-day analysis is very common. And beyond that, it becomes a little more murky. It really depends on if you have the data to feed into the analysis.
Excellent, thanks Andrew. From Cloud Expo in New York, I'm Eric Lanask. Follow this video and all the other ones from here at the Javits Center on my Twitter feed, @elanask.